Okay, looks like we are in business. Today, we're looking at 35211, looking at a BRRRR deal, and I'll show you where I filtered on. I was just looking at 3+ bedrooms, and today I was looking at properties specifically where they're 1,500 square feet or more because I want to look for bigger properties where the chances of me finding a home that I can convert or add bedrooms to are a little bit higher, hence allowing me to get a little bit higher rents, right? And I know in 35211, we've been seeing rents in the 1,300 and 1,400 for a 4-bedroom property. So that's where I want to start. And this is where I found one property, 69,900. This was 524 Fulton Avenue, Southwest, Birmingham, Alabama, 35211. This property has been on the property for 83 days. Did they do a price drop? They've been doing price drops pretty consistently, so they're probably really desperate to sell this property. Okay, good to know. All right, well, the next thing I want to do is I want to show you the comps that we've been pulling. And if you remember correctly, what we've been doing yesterday, including yesterday, I mean, is when we've been looking at more properties that's been sold the last couple of months. And when you think about it, I was just looking for properties that were sold recently. And you can see some properties that were recently sold in August of 2024. And these are all 35211 Powderly. Where are these properties? Let's see. So this property is in what neighborhood? And by neighborhood, I'm simply just, right, I don't live in Birmingham, but it doesn't stop me from looking up the area and seeing where I am at. 524 Fulton Ave. Let's pull this up in Google Maps. And you see that this property is near Arlington West End, North Titusville. Just looking at these little numbers right here for areas, because that's my best way of guessing. I have some properties that are 4-bedroom, 1 bath. So these would be it right here. In West End Manor and Powderly. Okay, West End Manor and Powderly. West End Manor is a little bit further south. That doesn't give me a lot of comfort, but sometimes it's hard to find good comps. And what's the other one? The other one is Powderly. Where is Powderly? Do I see Powderly here? Powderly. There's Powderly. Powderly. There you go. Powderly. So also closer to the West End Manor area. Okay. Given that's the case, I know that's a little bit further out. I was like, okay, let me see if I can find some properties that's a little bit closer in the neighborhood. I know I got these in my back pocket. I know that they are pretty valuable to me in terms of looking for the ARV, the after repair value, in terms of comparable sold properties. Given that I got some price per square footage around like the 80s, what am I seeing from my old list, 35211? So when I go to 35211, here's my list of sold properties. I can see that I saw 2 properties in the Arlington West End area where they're selling for, or they have sold for in April and May for $61 to $74 a square foot. But these were all 3-bedroom properties, not 4-bedroom properties. When I got to the 4-bedroom property area, I started seeing like, okay, here's West End Manor again, which is a lot further west of my property at 524 Fulton. But I can see that some of the properties were being sold for about $85 a square foot. And at $85 a square foot, that's kind of right in line with what I'm seeing right here. So I might be comfortable taking these 3 properties as my comparable sold properties. Let me go ahead and set up the BRRRR calculator right here. Let me just update this. Now that I got these 3 properties in there, let me just take a quick look at a condition of these properties. Okay, this one's pretty well renovated. So for 130 grand, new flooring, new HVAC, new paint. Okay, easy. Let me take a look at this property so you guys can see what's on here. Again, new bathrooms, new flooring for 152, 1690 square feet. That's not bad, but there's 2 garages here, so that's going to be a slightly elevated. So a $90 square foot, that's probably makes sense. Now, how about this property? This property does not have a garage, but being sold, and now it's being rented for $1,400 a month. Interesting. So you see that the rents are starting to slowly go up. Okay, great. Now that I got these properties in here, let's go ahead and see what's going on. So now that I got this property being listed at $69,900, I'm going to estimate my rehab now in the rehab calculator. And this property, I'm going to assume I need to repaint. I think the roof looks okay, but I always set aside $1,500 for the roof, right? That's just my way of analyzing the deals. I got $500 for landscaping. Just keep everything kind of tidy until you get it rent ready. For painting in row 86, I'm just going to put in my total square footage of 1610. I'm assuming to repaint the entire place. For row 90, I'm assuming I need to replace all the flooring. Now, there's some flooring that's okay, but it's just, I don't know why. My gut says I need to replace the flooring. If you look at this photo right here, it just looks tired, looks old. Something's awful with the flooring, and I can't really explain it. But like, I would definitely replace the flooring in the kitchen. I would probably repaint the cabinets to make it look nicer. It looks like there's some carpeting in the hallways in the bedroom. So I'm just going to replace all the flooring. And hey, worst case scenario, it could be a little bit lower, right? I got $3,500 in row 112 to repaint the cabinets to make it look nicer. I'm going to renovate the bathroom to make it look like the properties that we just saw. Like, if I'm going for an ARV that looks like this, well, my bathroom probably needs to look like this, right? For me to achieve the similar ARV. I want it. Now, again, this is all an art, right? It's not a science, but I want an appraiser, when they look at my property, and in case it gave me a lower appraisal, I can come back and potentially appeal, not challenge, appeal to the appraiser that, hey, I follow these comps in the market, and these are what these comps are appraising for, or what they were sold for. And I try to match similar types of quality and square footage and finishes so that I can achieve the same rental property. So you have to think about a story you have to tell, right? Way down the road, after the renovation is done, to decide, hey, how do I make my property similar to these 3 properties that are being sold for $83, $90 a square foot, right? You got to be able to justify it. All right. So now that I got 1 bathroom, I'm going to add extra bedroom here with existing square footage. I'm thinking that this property on the right-hand side looks like there's like this room here that might be able to convert it into a bedroom, or this property or this room right here might be able to convert it pretty easily. So I'm just putting in some money, a little bit of budget to convert and add an extra bedroom. So that gives me a total rehab of about $52,452. So that I'm going to plug right into C9 on this BRRRR calculator. Now, it's being listed at $69,900, but I'm going to use the analysis, assuming I can get this property for $60,000. Now, right now, if I take the average square footage, it's at 8733. Okay, I think I'm going to be conservative and use $80 a square foot. And here's the reason why. We saw that some of these properties, one have 2 extra bathrooms, so it's a little skewed. We also saw that these properties are built in 1970, 1959, 1940. Our properties were built in 1910. Again, is it an exact science that it got to be X percentage lower? No, but I prefer to be conservative. And if I can get surprised later down the road because I got a higher appraisal, great. But right now, I'm not going to take that chance on analyzing this property, assuming I'm going to get $9 a square foot when this $9 per square foot property also had 2 garage parking spots, right? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm consciously lowering the asking price. I mean, the rehab, post-rehab value of the ARV to be a little bit lower so that I'll be right around $128,800. And I'm going to use my analysis that way. For my market rent, if I go to affordablehousing.com and I go to the market rent estimator, again, if you're following how we've been analyzing deals, you would know that we're just taking the average rent of the closest bedroom amount. So closest bedroom count. So you can see that for 2020 units within a 1.77 mile radius, the average rent is $1,328. So I'm going to do 1325 here for my market rent in C13. Now, for property taxes, I'm going to assume $1,200 right now. Just keeping it simple. $1,050 for insurance, because that's what I've been paying for buying property in Birmingham. But again, you should always get a quote before you close so you can have some more confidence in your numbers. You should also check your assessor records to see what the millage rates are, right? So you can calculate correctly. But right now, I'm going to be using $80 a square foot. And on my buy side, I got $120,800. I'm purchasing the property for $60,000 with a $52,000 rehab. I got about $4,800 for closing costs. That's roughly around 8%. I usually trend between $3,000 to $5,000 here, so 4,800 feels about right, even if I'm going a little bit over. For my holding costs, you can see that my holding cost is based on this total PITI amount in G24. And in G24, I'm essentially assuming I'm borrowing this money all cash, right? I'm borrowing money at roughly around a 10% interest rate from private lenders to buy and rehab the property. So at $112,000, if I'm paying for 10% interest, assuming I'm following the 30-year amortization, right? This is just interest only. We're just gonna keep it simple because the goal is for you to buy this property all cash with debt that you have borrowed through the private markets to fund this BRRRR. Because the goal of a BRRRR is what, right? Let's just say in this scenario, your all-in cost would be $122,875. Well, you probably want that total capital invested to be 70% of the ARV. And if it's not, then you know that it's probably not going to be a perfect BRRRR. In other words, all the money you put in a perfect BRRRR means you can take all that money back out. If we're to use easy round numbers, let's say your ARV, your after repair value, was $100,000, and your total purchase price, total repair costs, and closing costs was 70% of that or 75% of that. Well, you want that to be $75,000, so you can get back out all $75,000 in the amount of a loan, right? So that's how you can potentially pay back all your capital partners in that situation. But in case you don't get a perfect BRRRR, here's what that might look like. So $122,875, that's your total all-in cost. And you can see that this is already calculated the total all-in cost is part ARV, which is 95%. So you're going to know you're not getting back all your capital in the scenario when your ARV is only $128,800. So rehab, we already went through it. This is just a repetition for what we had earlier. For our rent, we're going to have $1,325. I should link that to the first page to make things simple. Okay. And then my total PITI, or my cash flow after my refinance, assuming you can get this property, with 10% property management expenses, 7% maintenance. Again, I'm assuming a slightly lower maintenance amount because I'm assuming I'm doing a bigger rehab up front of the home, and 5% reserves. That gives you about $187 of cash flow after your refi. So here's my refi. I'm assuming that I can get a 7% interest rate, which is what I got quoted for recently. And I'm doing 80% of my ARV because that's also what I got quoted recently. So I can get a loan for $103. If you do this or you go through the scenario, your cash left in the deal is $19,835. So if your capital left in the deal is $19,835, your cash on cash return number is 13% in year 2. All right, assuming you have some empty or vacant areas here. So this is assuming I'm going to pay special, so I remember all this stuff. Values and source formatting. Boom. Just delete these so it's easier. So if we think the ARV is $128,800 and the purchase price $60,000, here are my numbers. All right. So now, if I were to say, well, what if I really do believe that I can get a better ARV value? What if I go to $85 a square foot, right? So a little bit higher, but not outrageous, still kind of within the range, but you're just not that confident in it, right? And then what if you go $50,000 for your purchase price? So instead of paying $60,000 for the property, you're now paying $50,000 for the property. That allows you, as you calculate through, for your cash to be significantly lower because your ARV is higher and your all-in cost is shrunk. So your loan amount at 8%, well, this could be a deal. And if you do your analysis here now, right, your capital left in the deal is $2,178. Well, in that situation, look at what happened to your cash and cash return. That's a much, much bigger thing. Now, this isn't a perfect BRRRR, right? Because you're leaving some money in the deal, but you know that you're almost doubling your invested capital every single year because you're only leaving in $2,170. That might be a really good deal for somebody, right? And that's assuming your ARV now is what? 136,850, 136,850, and your purchase price is $50,000. So you might say, hey, this is good enough for me to be a deal, right? Now, what if I do one more word scenario? What if I say my rehab, let me take off $5,000. If I take off $5,000 from this property, from this repair, because I might have overestimated something or I put in too much in contingency, well, now all of a sudden my total on cost of ARV is $78,000 because my purchase price is $50,000, even though it's listed for $6,900, right? So the seller might not be willing to go for it, right? Especially if they brought the property, from what it looks like, if they bought the property for $85,000 and now I'm buying it for $50,000, I mean, they're taking a big loss. They probably will say no, but it doesn't stop you from understanding what is a deal in your eyes. And in this scenario, guess what? Not only are you not leaving money in the deal, in this scenario, you are making $3,000 to keep the property after all your holding costs. So your ARV is still $138,850. You're still buying this property for a thing, but repair, rehab is now $47,452. C9. This should be C8. Info C9. Info C9. Oops. We'll go ahead. Do plus 5,000 back right here. I should go to info, subtract 5,000. Yep, minus 5,000. There we go. Now it all ties up. I should edit it here. That was my mistake. We're all working to get better every single day. All right, so now that you got the number in there, now it still yields you a negative $3,030. I mean, not negative $3,000. You're gaining $3,030. So after you do all your refinancing and you actually get your money back out, well, your repair value, because it's $5,000 less, you're actually now making money on the property. So what did we just do, guys? One, let's go ahead and do a quick recap. Today, we found a property on Redfin, right? It's right on a website. I just filtered for properties that were 3-bedroom plus, over 1,500 square feet, under $100,000, to see what can I see for other properties. I then looked at my comp list. All right, I got a list I am curating in this zip code for properties that have sold recently. Now, I saw that these neighborhoods or subdivisions, based on Google Maps that I saw, like West End Manors right here, but mine's all the way up here near Arlington North End. That gives me lower confidence in the ARV because it's so far away. Even though it's the same zip code, you're crossing a major street, couple of creeks and stuff like that. So again, that's why it's an art, not a science, because sometimes you got to be able to justify why you're using this comp all the way across town. Is it because you can't find any other 4-bedroom properties? Yeah, I mean, that could be it. But every appraiser's opinion is going to be slightly different. And that's where that's what we mean by it's an art, not a science. Okay. And then we saw, okay, well, I looked at these two properties. I saw what the square foot they are. And I looked at some of my older properties that were 4-1s that were also in the same neighborhood over there, but they were selling for 85 to 116. I saw some properties that were 3 bedrooms that were selling for 61 to 74. So I just got to keep in the back of my head, these 3-bedroom properties are not as valuable, but then also on a dollar per square footage basis, I can understand where my floor looks like, right? I've seen properties sold for 61 and 74, and they were pretty good condition properties, right? You can see that these have pretty decent finishes. Same thing with this one, but these were 3-bedroom properties, so I didn't want to use them as comps, right? You have to have your own way of prioritizing what matters to you more in terms of using certain properties as your comparable sold properties, right? So make sure you go through that exercise yourself. After that, we just plugged in some details, we put in an asking price, we estimated a rehab through that spreadsheet. And then we also calculate our ARV using $80 per square foot first, but then I upped it to 85 because of different scenarios. As you go through this exercise, right, you can plug it in some of your details, assuming your closing costs, your holding costs, which your holding costs are really primarily made up of some utility expenses and what you have for your tax and insurance and utility expenses. And now if you're borrowing all this capital up front, then you can figure out how much money you're actually going to leave in the deal. At the end of the deal, when we go to the refi piece, you have to plug in C6 of the refi sheet on what your percent LTV is. And this percent, I'm using 0.8 for 80% LTV, which stands for loan to value. So for a property that is worth $136,850 at the end of the day, I'm going to say, well, I can get a loan amount for $109,480, which is 80% of that value. At 7%, right, with a 3% closing cost for refinancing, well, that's going to give me a total cash left in the deal of $3,030, assuming this is the scenario. But you saw how many scenarios we went through, right? With the original ARV of being lower than what it is and a purchase price being higher than what it is, the returns don't look that attractive. Once you go $10,000 below $60,000, very unlikely that a seller will accept it. But now your numbers look very, very healthy because you're almost doubling your invested capital in there because that's how much money you're leaving in the deal. So essentially, you're almost getting back all your invested capital in 1 year through cash flow alone, right? So that's what you should think about going through for your own exercise. And of course, if you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just DM me the word BRRRR to LinkedIn, or you can find me on Kenti, or you can DM me on Instagram at InvestorKenti. All right, we're going to keep on doing this, right? These type of analysis take a long time, and they're also not as straightforward, which is why I kind of waited until now to go through all this exercise with you, because one, it takes time for me to organize all my thoughts and go through the step-by-step. But I'm going to look for feedback from all of you guys. If you guys have questions or spaces where you think I can explain better, please let me know. I'm trying to get better every single day. No, I am getting better every single day. But the only way I can get better is by doing this together alongside with you to get all your feedback. And I really enjoy doing this stuff. So I hope you all are able to message me on Instagram. You guys want to copy the spreadsheet? I didn't make it from scratch. I got it from a few other folks. And I just combine and tweak it so that I can analyze the deal a lot faster in my own way. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Tuesday. I hope you all get to spend some quality time with your family and friends today, because that's what life is all about. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 375. Have a good one, everybody.